From the battlefield to the boardroom, this is DogTags to Ownership, the podcast where veterans share their journeys from serving our nation to leading business. Hear inspiring stories of grit, growth, and the entrepreneurial spirit that drives those who've served to succeed. Tune in and take the first step toward your own mission in entrepreneurship.
Military One Percenters, officially welcome to DogTags to Ownership, where once a week we will interview veterans who have charted a path towards entrepreneurship. Here our goals are to share resources, advice, and success stories about starting a business, discuss strategies for building financial independence, and creating your own path, and most importantly, build a community to support each other through the challenges of transitioning from service life to civilian ownership. So let's get into it. And let's meet our host. I am Julie Austin, and this is my co-host, Matthew Cain.
Thanks, Julie. So Julie, let's go ahead and jump into this. Tell me a bit about your background in military service.
Yeah, so Matt, I commissioned from the Citadel in 2006, where I was first stationed at Fort Campbell, where I got to meet yourself, and have now been friends with you for over 18 and a half years, which very, very happy about. I have commanded at every level in the Army so far as a lieutenant colonel, and have been stationed all over the place, to include going to Iraq, and now currently serve as a battalion commander and plan to retire at the end of my battalion command time in June of 2026. So Matt, tell me a little bit about your military service.
Like you don't know it.
I don't.
So I commissioned in 2005 from OCS. I was a college option. Obviously spent a good chunk of the first part of my career at Fort Campbell with you. Deployments to Iraq and Afghanistan, company command time there. Continued into some staff positions after that. Most recently at the Pentagon, and now I am the Director of Emergency Services at Joint Base Meyer in Northern Virginia. And I have an approved retirement date of 1 October 2025. So very much looking forward to that.
And the lights at the end of the tunnel for you.
Yes, absolutely. If I can get through CIF turning. So, Julie, tell me how you landed on the idea for this podcast.
Well, Matt, I have lots of ideas.
I do.
Lots of ideas. So many ideas. And I like to talk because, I'm a true introvert at heart.
Sure.
But really, I really like to follow from the Green Notebook and Joe Byerly and his page and the team that he has there. And one day I saw an article that came up that I get in my email from his newsletter. And it was about a captain, I believe, who was transitioning out of the military. And he was really looking for literature on transitioning from military to civilian life and how to do that. And, for me, as I'm looking towards my transition from the military to civilian life, I do a lot of TikTok how-to videos, but even the TikTok doesn't have the how-to transition videos. And so what I really noticed is there's just not a lot of literature out there for people, for veterans, for military members who want to transition out of the military, no matter what rank, what year they're in, or what has happened, to really help them achieve the goals that they have next, which could be entrepreneurship and business ownership. So I really thought that this could be a dedicated space where we could sit here and talk and really help people find their path forward as they come out of the military, or maybe they're already out of the military and want to get into entrepreneurship or civilian ownership. So that's where the idea of DogTags to Ownership came, where I figured, let's name it something like, let's turn those dog tags into ownership.
Yeah.
And here we are for our first episode.
Yeah. Maybe someone that wants to start their own podcast after they get out of the military.
Yeah.
Or while they're in.
Oh, yeah, they could.
All right.
So Matt, then, as you look towards your approved retirement date of 1 October, what are some of your entrepreneurial goals as you begin that transition process?
Yeah, so I think when I made the decision to opt out of battalion command, I probably started that mental path towards retirement. And that happened when I was stationed over in the Pentagon in the Army G8 and having lunch with a cubicle mate named Josh Rogers, if you ever listen to this podcast. And we were talking about just our background, and told him I had purchased properties at about 3 different installations as we kind of moved around in the military. And he's like, "Oh, so you're into like investing in real estate?" And I told him, "No, not really." He's like, "Well, have you ever heard of the Bigger Pockets podcast. And I'm like, no. And at that time, I'd literally probably not listened to a podcast. I'm always a few steps behind on all things. And so I got into Bigger Pockets, which focuses on, real estate investing and that sort of thing. And that just kind of, I don't know, ignited a fire to pursue that. And so my wife and I started investing in real estate in Kansas City. And, we're up to about 10 units now in Kansas City. And I hope to continue doing that, if my wife allows me to do it full time after I retire from the military in October. So.
And you're also going to set your own property management job, right? Property management
Yeah, I
company?
mean, you and my wife have lots of ideas for other things I should be doing besides just buying more real estate, but we'll see how that goes.
I mean, but we already have a few clients, so you could definitely get on
Yeah.
that, Matt.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. Anybody out in Kansas City, if you're listening and you need a property manager, Matt Cain is.
Absolutely. So what do you hope to achieve with this podcast, Julie?
So I really hope that we're able to hit folks who are really looking to get into entrepreneurship or get into business ownership as they are transitioning from the military or maybe already transitioned out of the military and just aren't sure yet if they could do it, and provide them that outlet, that community where they can hear from other people, reach out, to know that, yeah, you can do it. It can be scary. It can be a hard step, but all of us that have served in the military, it's been scary. There's been hard things, but as Glendon Doyle and Abby Wambach say on their podcast, we can do hard things, and you can do hard things, and you can get into business ownership and entrepreneurship if that's something that you really want to do and you have the drive to do so. I hope that this podcast just helps people know that they can do that, and that we're here to help you make your vision, your dream a reality.
That's great.
Yeah. So Matt, you want us to start building some swag and really get this podcast going and really looking at, the military one percenters, because that's what we really are. And most of it's a fairly common fact that about only 1% of the U.S. population serve or have served in the military. And interestingly enough, in 2023, there are 31 million entrepreneurs in the U.S., or about 16% of the adult workforce. A significant amount of military veterans chose to start their own business after leaving the military. So Matt, why do you think that is? Why do you think veterans want to start their own business after leaving the military?
So for me, I guess personally, I think it's a lot of the structure, right? That we're kind of brought up with, the discipline. We have, I guess, left and right limits with things. We don't have as much freedom, I think, to have creative thinking and that so much in the military. So I guess in ways you feel a little bit restricted. We talk about staying in and having those quote unquote golden handcuffs that kind of keep you in towards the 20 years of the retirement. And I think for folks, they also, I don't know, because of the discipline and the structure, I think that can also help, with the transition into I think it's just having that freedom again to follow maybe their passion, their goals that they've just maybe not been able to just because of the military structure. Find their why, if you will, and strive towards that for the first time.
Yeah, I think that that's a big thing for military members, especially as you've gone in the military, you've been a part of a bigger community, a brotherhood, sisterhood, as many call it. You have that discipline, you have that initiative, and you just want to take that and move it into something that you're really passionate about. After you've served for only a few years, or maybe it's been 20, 30 years, but really taking that passion and that drive and discipline to go towards something that you want. I think 100%, Matt, I agree with you.
You said it better. All right, so Julie, you've had lots of ideas on what you want to do after the military. Those in our close circle know you've got lots of ideas. Everything from starting a food truck to developing an RV park. So why not just find a 9-to-5 job?
Yeah, so our close friend Byron Green tells me that my ideas are like I'm getting out of prison, and they're my get out of prison ideas. I think that my ideas just stem from wanting to do something more. Being in the military for now 18 and a half years, going to be 20 when I retire. It's been that day-to-day grind of taking care of soldiers, taking care of other people, probably taking care of myself last. And as I look towards the future, I really want to do something that I enjoy doing and I have fun doing, and that I can still have those interactions with people and still help people as they move in their life or do whatever. So that was one of the premises of why I wanted to start this podcast, is to continue to still give back to the military and veteran community post, retirement. But some of my business ideas, yeah, I want to develop a food truck. I already have a name for it. It's called Lightweights. You'll probably see it at my RV park that I'm going to develop outside of Fort Liberty. It's off of 95, in between of 295 and Business 95. So if you're in the Fort Liberty area and looking for an RV park or a boat and storage lot, hit me up. It's going to be Austin Sandcastle's RV park. We'll be there. Yeah, it's just something that I want to continue to give back and really help, but then also have fun doing it and be able to build those different communities for folks as I move out of the military life.
That's great. And I think there's something, super refreshing about charting your own path, because the military has really charted the path for us. We've had obviously choices to go to certain installations over others, but for many, there isn't a whole lot of choice there. And I think being able to make those decisions now is just, again, super exciting, super refreshing at this point, in our life,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, I think you said that better than I did. It's being able to make our own decisions and being able to set ourselves up and our family up for the things that we want to do and still be there for them.
Yeah.
I think is probably a big thing for both of us with young families, young kids, is being able to be there for them as they grow up. Yeah, so that's why I have lots of ideas. If you have an idea out there and you want to talk to me about it, let me know. I can help you come up with an idea. I have 3 LLCs now at this point. We'll see if any of them work.
They say something about, 9 out of 10 businesses fail or something.
Yeah.
So you just gotta.
I just gotta do 7 more, and maybe
Yeah.
one will stick.
Right.
So Matt, as we're building this podcast, we've taken a lot of time to look at who we want to interview, and how we want to do this podcast. So can you let the listeners know who we have scheduled to come on the podcast in the next few episodes?
Yeah. So, and I'll back up for a second because, one of Julie's ideas more recently, or about a month ago, was the podcast, probably, right? So now it's become like, well, that'll go away maybe in the next week. And this one didn't. And Julie started buying podcast equipment and started putting a guest list together, and then started reaching out to potential guests. So at that point, I knew this was real and this was going to happen. And hence here we are in your basement recording the first podcast. So we can't let people down, mission first on this podcast. So yeah, the first guest is going to be Dave Harrison, and he's the host of Lockdown the Commanders podcast. And he's also was a kennel master, I know, up at Fort Drum when I was up there. So those that don't know, the Commanders, Washington Commanders national football team there.
Raise hail!
And then the second one's going to be Joe Byerly, and he's the creator and host of From the Green Notebook. Probably a lot of military listeners are familiar with Joe. And then the fourth episode is going to be Ashley Sanker, founder, owner of, now she does functional smart clothing. We talked to her a couple days ago now. She sounds fantastic. We're super excited to have her on in a couple weeks. So really looking forward to that call.
Yeah, so I'm super pumped to have those 3 on, and then we have some others that we're getting lined up now, as well. As Matt said, he was hoping that maybe this idea wouldn't take off, but I started emailing people, and we definitely have a list of about 25 folks right now that we're going to bring onto the podcast and interview over the next couple of months. But one thing, as we close out our interviews with every podcast, we're going to ask our interviewees 2 questions, and we want to get their answer on those 2 questions. So today we're going to answer those 2 questions for everyone on what our thoughts are for those things. So I'm going to start with Matt to answer the first question. And so, Matt, I know that you listen to a lot of real estate and investing focused podcasts and audiobooks. So are there any podcasts or books that you would recommend to our listeners right now?
Yeah, so my go-to podcasts are definitely in the Bigger Pockets realm. And I know they've had quite a few spin-offs. So they have like the real estate podcast. There's Bigger Pockets Money, which focuses on financial independence and retire early. And then they've got the On the Market, which just talks, again, a lot on investing in real estate and market conditions, macroeconomics, that sort of thing. So those are my go-to podcasts for sure. And then as far as a book right now, I'm listening to Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss, former FBI hostage negotiator. Really good. So over to you for the second question.
Yes. Yes.
So, and that'll be the final question for every episode. Admiral William McRaven authored the book Make Your Bed, Little Things That Can Change Your Life and Maybe the World. So Julie, do you make your bed every morning?
I do. But I will say, when I was growing up, until I went to the Citadel, I did not make my bed every morning. My dad actually made my bed every morning.
Doesn't surprise me.
It does not surprise anybody when I say that. And then I went to the Citadel and I made my bed every day. And my dad would tell you that they use my room to show for all the inspections because I made my bed so well. And since then, I've made my bed every day, even when we go and stay at an Airbnb or a hotel or go TDY or we're in the field. I make my sleeping bag really nice just to make sure that everything is in an orderly fashion because I feel like that's what I have to do.
So like Admiral McRaven, do you think that sets the tone for the rest of your day then?
It does.
Yeah.
Because if I come home and the bed's not made, I'm pretty upset about it.
Yeah, he talked in his commencement speech, right, about making your bed. And he's like, even if you essentially have like the worst day ever, he's like, you can at least come home to a bed that's made.
Exactly.
Right? So, no, it's good stuff.
Exactly. And I 100% agree with him on that.
That's fantastic. All right, so we're going to start wrapping up here. So, military one percenters, whether you're brainstorming your first business idea, already running a company, or just curious about where to start, DogTags to Ownership is the place for you.
And with that being said, as Matt said in our earlier sneak peek of who we have coming on, next week we are excited to have our first guest, Mr. David Harrison, who some of you might have heard on the podcast Locked On Commanders. If you're a big Washington Commanders fan like myself, which I am, and we're going to be in the playoffs, so I hope you're all ready. Please tune in and listen to David. He has some great stories as he came out of the military and now is really working into the sports media realm and definitely making a difference in that area. So in our final part here on our episode that we're going to ask you all is our call to action. So many of you may be thinking, how can you get involved? First, please hit that like or subscribe button for wherever you listen to your podcast so you can get all of our new episodes. Second, you can send us a message on our social medias or at our email accounts, julie@dogtagsownership.com or matthew@dogtagsownership.com, and follow our social media pages. On Instagram and Facebook, we're at DogTagsOwnership, and on X, we're at DOT Podcast. We're also on Reddit with a group for Reddit, which is Dog Tags to Ownership. So please give us a like, a follow, so you can follow us for any useful tips or resources that we have out there and to see who our next person is that's going to come onto the show. And then finally, what we'd really like to do as we build our community at Dog Tags to Ownership, we'd like to celebrate each other and our wins, either big or small, as we all work together towards owning our future. So with that being said, Matt, thanks for our first episode.
Absolutely.
And we want to thank everybody first for your service, but now let's work together to write the next chapter of our story. Until next week, military one percenters, let's keep working to turn those dog tags into ownership.